Welcome to Poetry Lockdown. We are up to day 68, but I want to acknowledge that I have not done a Poetry Lockdown for a whole week. Um, One of the reasons that's the case is because I was actually hospitalized this last week. I'll do a little quick screen here. That's my arm. It's in a big cast because I had this major bursitis that just morphed into something bigger and infected my whole arm and needed to have surgery. So I was at Regent's Hospital for most of this week, um, healing, and I'm feeling a lot better now. And have a couple of weeks where I'll be, just not really doing very much with this guy right here. But anyways, it was a very useful and fruitful week. Although it was really hard being apart from my wife and our little pooch. Um, but honestly, one of the themes of this poetry lockdown has just been the ways that poetry and prayer intersect with each other. And I got to tell you, being all by your lonesome for a week um, definitely does have you asking and communing and trying to commune with the divine, and that was definitely the case for me. I'm going to introduce the poem by Tracy K. Smith in just a minute, but one of the things I wanted to say is I recognized in this time of kind of weird isolation, almost like quarantine within the quarantine when you're in a hospital during this time, because I didn't get to have any visitors or anything like that for this week. Um, I think I realized how hungry I was for things to return to quote the way they were before. And one of the messages I really got pretty loudly and clearly in my prayer, anyways, was that they're not going to return ever. And I think that was something that I don't think I fully grasped. I mean, I think intellectually I realized that, but I didn't. I don't think I grasped it with my heart until this week. So coming back home, I was reading this collection by Tracy K. Smith. So I'd scribed in the hospital so I could listen to poetry because it's kind of hard to read books with my hand the way it is. And I listened to a terrific collection of hers called Wade in the Water. I'd really recommend it. But she's got this poem where she personifies God. And I think she does it in such a beautiful, surprising way. So I'm going to read that for you right now. The poem's called Hill Country by Tracy K. Smith. He comes down from the hills, from the craggy rock, the shrubs, the scrawny live oaks and dried up junipers, down from the cloud bellies and the bellies of hawks, from the caracara stalking carcasses, from the clear sun-smacked soundlessness that shrouds him, from the weathered bed of planks outside the cabin where he goes to be alone with his questions. God comes down along the road with his windows unrolled so the twigs and hanging vines can slap and scrape against him in his Jeep. Down past the buck caught in the hog trap that kicks and heaves, bloodied, blinded by the whiff of its own death, which God, thank God, staves off. He downshifts, crosses the shallow trickle of river that only just last May scoured the side of the canyon to rock, gets out, walks along the limestone bank, castor beans, cactus, scat of last night's coyotes. Down below the hilltops, he squints out at shadow, tree backing tree. Dark depth the eyes glide across, not bothering to decipher what it hides. A pair of dragonflies mate in flight. Tiny flowers throw frantic color at his feet. If he tries, if he holds his mind in place and wills it, he can almost believe in something larger than himself rearranging the air. He squints at the Jeep, glaring in bright sun, stares a while at patterns the tall branches cast onto the undersides of leaves. Then God climbs back into the cab, returning to everywhere. Love that poem. And I also love the way that Tracy K. Smith reads it. I'd really recommend her audio book, right, on Scribe, reading her own poetry. She's got just an amazing cadence. But one of the things I was thinking about with this poem, honestly, there's all this news about returning to church, reopening the churches and all this kind of stuff. And I get it, I understand, as a cradle Catholic, the desire to be back in those buildings. But, I got to be honest with you, right? For me, like, I feel like that is a desire to try to find God in a place you've found God before. And I'm going to speak for me personally, but for me personally, I'm not hearing that message. And to me, I'm being surprised by God daily, and I'm thinking, what's the new surprise here? This poem, speaking to surprises, right? What a surprising way of presenting the divine as, a guy in a pickup truck, and God's taken a break, right, from everywhere to just be in the nature that God created. Pretty magnificent. And he knows, right, even as he's like kind of driving down or walking down, he's still healing that buck, and he staves off death. And then he can't avoid climbing back into the cab, returning to everywhere. So, I mean, even if we cannot be in a church, no matter where we are, God is there. In that hospital room where I was all alone, God was there right now as I'm, preaching my nonsense about this poem. God's here. God's where you are. If you're a believer, the church walls don't really matter. That's my 2 cents, because it's in the news and all kinds of people are saying lots of heated things. But I really want people to be safe. And I also want people to also see there might be something new or fresh that God's trying to tell us. I think there is. Thanks for listening to this poem, Tracy K. Smith. I don't know your theological persuasion, but I see a lot of wisdom in this poem. I'm going to read the last section of it again. If he tries, if he holds his mind in place and wills it, he can almost believe in something larger than himself rearranging the air. He squints at the Jeep glaring in bright sun, stares a while at patterns the tall branches cast onto the undersides of leaves. Then God climbs back into the cab, returning to everywhere. Thank you, Tracy K. Smith, and thank you all for listening.